On the day of the wedding, Stella, Daniel's first love who had left him to go abroad years ago, unexpectedly showed up at our wedding. His first love held up the engagement ring Daniel had once proposed to her with, and serenaded us with closing the chapter. After the song, she choked out, "It's all over now. Regret is still regret." I looked at Daniel, his eyes turned red, and I took off my high heels, fiercely throwing one at his head. I swung my arm, flinging the other high heels at his first love. I sneered, "You toxic pair. You're a damn match made in heaven. Bless their hearts, they deserve each other." In the 5th year of my relationship with Daniel, he proposed to me, witnessed by all our friends and family. I looked down at Daniel, kneeling on one knee, holding the extravagant ring that a mysterious buyer had purchased recently. At the time, I'd seen the news and felt quite regretful, telling Daniel, "What a shame, I actually wanted to buy that one." Daniel just smiled then, saying nothing. I never imagined he had bought the ring to propose to me. Daniel's eyes were full of me as he asked, "Olivia, will you marry me?" Tears of excitement welled up in my eyes, and I nodded vigorously, "Yes, I will." We kissed, witnessed by our friends and family. In that moment, I thought I was happier than those forced into marriages of convenience for profit. At least I was marrying for love without harming my family's interests. On the eve of our wedding, our friends in our social circle threw a party for us, calling it a celebration of us taking the plunge into married life. I had a bit too much to drink, and while I was drowsy in the restroom, I overheard several women talking outside. One woman's voice, slightly derisive, said, "Olivia is actually going to marry Daniel." I recognized the speaker's voice as Mia, the youngest daughter of the Sue family. My breathing even slowed, fearing they'd discover the actual subject of their gossip was eavesdropping. "Right, Anat." Her replied. "Who among us doesn't know Daniel is still in love with Stella, his first love who went abroad? Olivia has simply been living abroad herself, so she's clueless." I had heard rumors about Daniel's first love before, but I had never asked him about it. I merely thought that his first love had just gone abroad, not died. Besides, Daniel owned a private jet. If he really loved her, it would just be a matter of a plane ride to see her. I listened quietly, my face betraying no emotion. Mia continued, "Back then, they were passionately in love. But in the end, Daniel's elders stepped in and paid off Stella, giving her a large sum of money to go abroad. Stella had never seen so much cash, so she accepted it on the spot without even negotiating." Mia scoffed lightly. "Daniel was completely distraught back then, and that's when he happened to meet Olivia, who had just returned from abroad." Mia lowered her voice. "Olivia looks about 60 to 70% like Stella, especially the beauty mark near her eye on the left. It's identical." My heart sank. Daniel often stared blankly at the beauty mark near my eye, and when aroused, he especially loved to gently kiss it. So, he was playing out the stand-in trope with me all this time. Thinking I had heard enough gossip, I was about to get up when another woman's voice spoke. "Stella has returned and is preparing for an art exhibition. Do you know who's funding it?" My heart plummeted, and my hands involuntarily clenched into fists. The woman sneered, spitting out 3 words, "Daniel." My drunkenness instantly vanished, and the emotion in my eyes turned completely cold. Well. Now who can tell the difference between me and a clown? Daniel and I had already legally married yesterday. The wedding ceremony was in 3 days. The marriage between Daniel and me wasn't just about love, it involved countless interests, creating a ripple effect throughout our circles. I couldn't act rashly and directly confront him. After all, the elite valued their reputation above all else. As long as some matters weren't made public, everyone implicitly agreed to turn a blind eye. 2 years ago, the Daniel family suffered a severe blow. Their funding dried up completely. It was my intervention that secured funding from the Olivia family, allowing the Daniel family to bounce back from the brink. If I hadn't pleaded and argued with my family then, the Daniel family would have gone bankrupt long ago. When I arrived at the office, Sarah said someone had delivered an invitation to the art exhibition. I had a faint feeling something was off. I raised an eyebrow slightly, took the invitation, and opened it. Just as I expected, it was Stella's art exhibition. I asked Sarah, who delivered it. Sarah said, it was a lady who didn't leave a name. I saw the organizing entity was Daniel, so I accepted it. My gaze dropped to the words Daniel on the invitation, and it felt like a slap in the face. My voice was chilling as I asked, did the person who delivered it have a beauty mark near her eye? Sarah thought for a moment, then nodded, yes, she did. On her left eye, just like yours. I put away the invitation and called Daniel. He sounded like he had just woken up, his voice a little hoarse. Honey, what's wrong? I suppressed my anger, trying to keep my voice steady. There's a problem with the wedding gown. Could you come with me to check it out tomorrow? Daniel paused for a moment, then after a few seconds, he said, I have some things to deal with at the office tomorrow, so I can't get away. I naturally knew Daniel wouldn't be able to spare time for me tomorrow, because tomorrow was Stella's art exhibition. I specifically chose to arrive at the art exhibition when it was most crowded. As soon as I entered the gallery, I saw Stella openly holding Daniel's arm. Daniel's face held a smile of pure happiness I had never seen before. At first glance, they truly looked like a blissfully happy, div-ine couple. Daniel's proposal at the time had been a grand affair. Our wedding news went viral for 3 days. Everyone knew Daniel and I were the couple. Their intimacy in public was undoubtedly a direct insult to me. Stella saw me first. She didn't release Daniel's arm. Instead, she looked at me with a defiant expression. We stared at each other across the distance, the air thick with tension. Daniel followed her gaze. The moment he saw me, he quickly pulled his arm away and walked towards me. Stella's face instantly changed. He looked somewhat guilty but feigned composure. Olivia, let me explain. I smiled sweetly. Explain what? I just received an invitation to come see the art exhibition. Daniel looked relieved that I wasn't planning to make a scene. I linked arms with Daniel and walked towards Stella. The art exhibition attendees' attention was no longer on the paintings but eagerly awaiting a catfight between Stella and me. Stella spoke first. I didn't expect Ms. Olivia to grace us with her presence. My smile was generous and impeccable. Miss Stella personally delivered my invitation. How could I not come? I emphasized the word personally, and sure enough, Daniel's face darkened. A hint of panic flashed across Stella's face. I glanced around. Miss Stella, your painting skills are quite impressive. I suppose you've learned a lot of real talent during your years abroad. I casually pointed to 2 paintings. I'll buy these too. With a demure smile, I raised my hand, adorned with the engagement ring, and patted Daniel's shoulder, playfully saying, charge it to my husband's account. I watched Stella's enraged face and smirked. Daniel questioned me, his face filled with anger. What was that just now? I owed her a lot, and I was just trying to compensate by helping her with an art exhibition. Did you have to humiliate her? I quietly lit a cigarette, slowly exhaling pale blue smoke. How did I humiliate her? Daniel, we are already legally married, a coup. Lou protected by national law. Who does she think she is? What's more, if Stella hadn't personally delivered the invitation to my office, would I even know you arranged an art exhibition for her? So, who exactly is humiliating whom here? Daniel was stunned by my barrage of questions. He frowned at me and blurted out, you're too sensitive. I sneered, dropping the cigarette butt and crushing it underfoot. Everyone has a past, so I've never questioned your previous relationships. But now we're married, so you'd better get your act together and stop causing me unnecessary trouble. Daniel's face was grim. He was clearly thinking of how to respond to me. I bent down, picked up the cigarette butt, wrapped it in a tissue, and put it in my pocket. I looked at him coldly. Ordinary people cheating just ruins a family. People like us cheating will affect stock prices. Think about that. Daniel seemed to have taken my words to heart, and he apologized and appeased me for quite a while. The wedding was held as scheduled. I walked into the ceremony hall wearing my custom-made white wedding gown. Just as we were about to exchange rings, the doors of the ceremony hall suddenly opened, and the lights instantly focused on the entrance. Stella stood there in a white, trailing evening gown, holding a microphone in one hand and the engagement ring Daniel had once used to propose to her in the other. You suddenly broke into my life, stole my reason, and then left. I realized she was serenading us with closing the chapter. The crowd below looked as if they'd seen a ghost, their faces filled with shock. After the song, she choked out, it's all over now. Regret is still regret. I turned to see Daniel's eyes slightly red, filled with grief and regret. Fine, fine, fine. So this toxic pair is making a fool out of me, huh? I took off my high heels and hurled one at Daniel's head. Damn it, 5 years and you couldn't afford a plane ticket? You pulled this crap on me. Daniel clutched high. S head, groaning. I turned to Stella. She seemed intimidated by my aggressive demeanor, shrinking back a step. Don't you dare run. You're not off the hook. I took off my other high heels and swung my arm, throwing it at her. You might be full of yourself, but you crossed the wrong person. Stella shrieked. Ah, the high heels hit Stella directly on the head, and blood began to trickle from her temple. I forgot to mention, I was a pitcher when I went to high school abroad. Stella clutched her head, wailing. Daniel, seeing her injured, rushed forward to check on her, but his parents held him back. preventing him from approaching Stella. Mrs. Daniel gritted her teeth. I told you long ago that this conniving woman is a bad omen. What sane person crashes someone else's wedding like this? Daniel struggled fiercely, desperate to check Stella's injuries. Mom, let go of me. Mr. Daniel raised his hand and slapped him hard. Get a grip. This is your wedding. She might be crazy, but are you too? The slap didn't bring Daniel back to his senses. He broke free from their grasp and quickly ran to Stella, kneeling down to tenderly examine the wound on her forehead. I watched the love-struck pair, my heart shattered in a moment. My parents, fearing I would lose control, tightly gripped my hands. Mr. Daniel angrily ordered the bodyguards, separate them. Drag that bastard out of here. I pulled my hands free from my parents' grasp and slowly walked towards Daniel, who was being held by 2 bodyguards. My voice was cold. I'm not done with you over this. Daniel's eyes were bloodshot. I'm warning you, don't you dare do anything to Stella, or I'll make you regret it. The bodyguard quickly covered his mouth and dragged him away. I looked down, gazing at Stella, who was slumped on the ground, looking disheveled. She panicked under my stare, yet still feigned composure. If you do anything to me, Daniel won't let you off. I bent down slightly and slapped her. The first slap felt a little too light, not satisfying enough, so I slapped her again, harder. The second slap was much harder, and half of Stella's face instantly swelled up. I looked at the trembling Stella, a slow smile spreading across my lips. After what you've done, even if I let you off, do you think the Daniel family will let you off? In the underground parking lot, I stood barefoot on the ground, leaning against the car door in my thin wedding gown, smoking a cigarette. I looked down at the diamond ring on my finger, recalling the farce that had just ended, and it all felt like a nightmare. The sound of dress shoes clicking on the ground echoed through the quiet parking lot. I thought it must be Sarah, coming to bring me my shoes. I looked up. It wasn't Sarah who had arrived, but a man I hadn't seen in a long time. It was Marcus, the eldest son of the Sioux family, and my first love. Our love had been as passionate as our breakup had been devastating. When the Sioux family fell on hard times, I offered to help them, but Marcus stubbornly refused my suggestion. He broke up with me, decisively returned stateside, and led the nearly bankrupt Sioux family to new heights, becoming a legendary figure in everyone's eyes. In recent years, the Sioux family's focus had gradually shifted abroad. Even if I hadn't actively avoided him, I still wouldn't have encountered him regularly. I hadn't seen him for a very long time. Marcus was wearing a meticulously tailored custom-tailored suit. His skin was naturally pale, his eyes aloof and weary, and he exuded a faint hint of hostility, as always. I slowly exhaled pale blue smoke, which wafted across his deep, profound eyes. He was still the same as before, his face clearly held a smile, yet there was no warmth in his eyes. Marcus's voice was teasing, still the best pitcher, your aim is as sharp as ever. My mind exploded. Nothing could be more mortifying than your ex seeing the spectacle at your wedding. Those damn jerks. I'll shove a hairdryer up they our asses and blast them with alternating hot and cold air until they get hemorrhoids and diarrhea. I pressed my lips together, ignoring him. He bent down, placed the shoes he was holding on the ground, and knelt to help me put them on. My nose pricked. Out of 7 billion people in the world, I was willing to be embarrassed in front of anyone but Marcus. But clearly, I was utterly humiliated today. He stood up, a corner of his mouth twitched, and he gazed intently at me, his voice carrying a faint tease. Should I congratulate you on your wedding or your divorce? I glared at him. I just got married. Marcus chuckled. You don't tolerate injustice and value your reputation above all else. After today's spectacle, you're definitely getting a divorce. He reached up to tuck a stray strand of hair behind my ear, his voice deepening. No one understands you better than I do. Indeed, the person who understood me best in this world wasn't my parents or my friends, but my passionately loved first love. He always managed to find the real me beneath my layers of pretense. A cigarette ash fell onto my wedding gown, burning a hole in the delicate fabric. My distracted and dazed mind snapped back to reality. I looked at him coldly and repeated, I'm married. Marcus gave a roguish, shallow smile. I don't mind being the other man. I was utterly shocked by Marcus's words. I frowned at him. If there's something wrong with your head, go see a doctor. Marcus looked at me and repeated, I don't mind being the other man. If I was shocked just now, I now thought Marcus was insane. I reminded him, we broke up 6 years ago. Our relationship ended the moment we parted ways. What kind of other man would you be? Marcus stared unblinkingly into my dark eyes. Just because we broke up, does that mean I can't continue to love you? Marcus's audacious righteousness made my mind go blank for a moment. What kind of twisted logic was that? I pushed him away and warned, keep your distance from me. If anyone takes photos of us, it will affect my divorce settlement. Marcus furrowed his brow slightly, a hint of impatience in his cold eyes. How much is Daniel's fortune worth? Is it worth all this trouble? I waved at Sarah, who was standing a short distance away, hesitant to approach, and silently got into the car. I looked at Marcus through the car window. Our gazes met, our eyes locking. Marcus tilted his head to light a cigarette. The pale blue smoke blurred his features, and the emotions in my eyes settled completely. Daniel's fortune indeed wasn't worth my effort, but I simply couldn't swallow this insult. Daniel's meager fortune couldn't comfort me at all, so I wanted the entire Daniel family. When I got home, my parents were anxiously waiting for me. My mother, Eleanor, helped me take off the elaborate wedding gown. Freed from its confines, my shoulders slowly slumped. Mom held me close. I didn't cry, but the feeling of humiliation grew stronger. Olivia, this will all pass. Your father and I will definitely get justice for you. I shook my head. I'll get justice myself, you don't need to trouble yourselves. Mom gently patted my back and quietly complained, you've always been so strong-willed, wanting to do everything yourself since you were little. What are parents like us for then? I forced a small smile. Don't worry, Mom, I can handle it. After something like this happened, your father loves you so much, and with his temper, how could he possibly let you have any further ties with the Daniel family? I'll talk to Dad myself, I interrupted her. You don't need to worry. Although wasn't my biological mother, she had always been incredibly kind to me. She sympathized with my losing my mother at a young age and gave me the care and love of a birth mother. I had long since considered her my real mother. After such a major incident, she was definitely heartbroken for me. Mom didn't say anything more. After running the bathwater for me, we left. Immersed in the hot water, my temples throbbed faintly. Ignoring the pain, I called Sarah. Contact and tell him to bring his lawyer to discuss the divorce with me tomorrow. I pushed open the conference room door, surprised to see Daniel had brought Stella with him to discuss the divorce. He and Stella were holding hands, intertwined, looking every bit like a happy couple. Sometimes I wondered how Daniel's shrewd parents could have raised such a love-struck fool, so blinded by romance. Could there be some secret about Daniel's birth? Even David, a seasoned lawyer, was somewhat surprised by the situation, but he quickly regained his composure. After the two lawyers briefly explained the situation, Daniel looked at me. I know I wronged you this time. Just tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to satisfy your demands. I tried to find a hint of guilt in Daniel's eyes, but I only saw his yearning for a beautiful future now that he had rediscovered his love. Stella glanced demurely at Daniel, then looked at me, her eyes openly defiant. I didn't want to say anything more, so I had Mr. David state my divorce terms. After David finished, Daniel's expression instantly darkened, and even Stella's face changed color. Daniel slammed his hand on the table and stood up. We've only been married a few days. What you're asking for is practically leaving me with nothing. I observed Daniel's furious expression, calmly saying, do you know how much Daniel's and Olivia's stock prices have fallen since the wedding video went viral online? Do you know how severely my reputation has been damaged? I stood up, completely devoid of emotion, and laid down my ultimatum. What I'm asking for is actually modest. Back when Daniel was on the verge of bankruptcy, it was Olivia's investment that saved you. Did you think Daniel had some inherent investment value? I pleaded with my father to invest because you were my boyfriend. Not demanding the entire Daniel is a testament to my mercy. If it weren't for me these past few years, with your business acumen, Daniel would have gone bankrupt 3 or 4 times over. Daniel, you're just a lovesick idiot obsessed with cheap women. Daniel's expression completely darkened, his gaze growing more complex. His so-called pride had been brutally shattered in front of the woman he loved. Now he simply wished he could hit me. I scoffed, then uttered the final words that would completely obliterate his pride. I spoke slowly and clearly, making sure he couldn't miss a single word. Every bite you eat now is a handout from Olivia. The next second, the conference room door was flung open. I watched as Mrs. Daniel walked directly to Stella and slapped her hard. The slap was so loud my own face seemed to sting. Stella's head was knocked to the side, but Mrs. Daniel had no intention of letting her off the hook. Daniel tried to step forward and stop her, but 2 bodyguards rushed in and restrained him tightly. Mrs. Daniel grabbed Stella's hair with one hand and slapped her again. You hussy! You took my money back then and ran off abroad without a word. Now my son is married, and you waltz in here to meddle and ruin his marriage. I had never seen Mrs. Daniel act like such a shrew before. It scared me enough to take a small step back. Daniel struggled violently, trying to break free but failing. He could only shout, "Mom, don't touch her." Mrs. Daniel was seeing red now. She completely ignored what Daniel was saying. She looked ready to bury Stella alive then and there, so there was no way she'd let her off. Stella's cheek was badly swollen, with several scratch marks from fingernails. She cried out, trying to explain, "Auntie, I truly love Daniel." "Shut your filthy mouth. You shouldn't have studied oil painting. You should have gone to learn opera, playing the role of a harlot. Do you, a tramp like you, actually think you can marry into the Daniel family? Do you think I'm dead?" Mrs. Daniel kicked her twice. With full force, each blow vicious. Her high heels dug into Stella's delicate skin, and blood instantly gushed out. Sarah quietly whispered to me, asking if I wanted to intervene, lest someone die. I gently shook my head. Even if someone died, it would be on Mrs. Daniel's head. What did it have to do with us? Mrs. Daniel grabbed the coffee pot from the table and poured it directly over Stella's head. The scalding coffee splashed onto Stella, who screamed and cried, clutching her face, her shrieks echoing in the room. Mrs. Daniel looked down at her disheveled figure, menacingly threatening, "This is just a small lesson for you today. If I ever see you near my son again, I will make your life a living hell." With that, she ordered people to drag Stella and Daniel out. The bodyguard stepped forward and dragged Stella out. The air was thick with the smell of blood. I looked at the bloodstains remaining on the carpet and couldn't help but marvel at what a ruthless character Mrs. Daniel was. Mrs. Daniel sat down opposite me, closing the divorce agreement in front of her. When she looked up at me again, all her emotions were composed. The woman who had just been so vicious, almost murderous, seemed like a figment of my imagination. A perfectly measured smile played on her lips. "I understand you young people are hot-headed, and what's more, our family was at fault first for not completely removing that troublemaker from the root. But divorce is not a game, after all, neither of our families are small-time families, and there are many intertwined interests." I didn't interrupt her, allowing her to continue. Mrs. Daniel observed my reaction and continued, "Daniel is still young. Who doesn't make mistakes when they're young? What matters is living well in the future. I'm an experienced person myself, and I promise Daniel will never see that troublemaker again." I chuckled lightly. As for these intertwined interests, if I wanted to, I could ensure Daniel has no further ties with the Olivia family whatsoever, let alone talk about any interests. Some things, the stronger party sets the terms. I raised an eyebrow, my tone subtly challenging, "Wouldn't you agree?" Mrs. Daniel watched me for a long time, the smile gradually fading from her lips, before she stood up and left. I saw Marcus again at a dinner party. As I entered, I saw him seated at the head of the table. Hearing the movement, he looked up at me. I couldn't just turn and leave, so I endured his intense, direct gaze. I was seated next to him. After I sat down, I heard him laugh, a joyful, somewhat muffled, yet piercing sound. I turned my head to observe him. He had matured a lot since we dated, his facial features were more defined, and when accepting toasts, he exuded a composure and calm befitting a person in a position of power. He held his wine glass but didn't drink. I knew he had suffered a severe stomach bleed once for a business deal, and had lasting stomach issues ever since. Being in the same social circle, even after we broke up, news about him constantly reached my ears. I knew he had endured a lot of hardship to elevate the Sioux family to its current standing. When he suffered a severe stomach bleed from drinking, I secretly went to see him once. I stood outside the hospital room, not daring to enter. I was afraid I would slap him, demanding to know why he wouldn't accept my help, why he didn't take the easy path, choosing to suffer instead. I ate the entire meal distracted, barely catching the gist of the conversations. I decided to get up and go to the restroom, hoping to clear my head. At the corner of the hallway, I was suddenly pulled by the wrist and pinned against the wall. I was so startled I almost cried out. When I looked up, my eyes met Marcus's dark gaze. The faint scent of sandalwood drifted from him into my nostrils. I frowned at him. "What are you doing? When are you getting divorced?" I struggled, trying to break free from his grip but couldn't. I growled, "None of your business." Marcus stared at me for a while, his gaze growing darker. "Seriously, when are you getting divorced?" I sensed that if I didn't tell him clearly when I was divorcing, he wouldn't let me go. The lawyers are still liquidating assets. Divorce isn't that simple for people like us. Marcus frowned, an intense stare in his eyes. "Are you really content with me being your illicit affair?" I rolled my eyes. "We have nothing to do with each other. What kind of other man would you be? How much money does the Daniel family really have? His tone was quite impatient. I'll give you double, no, 5 times. I cut him off. Am I desperate for your cash? Do you think this is some cheesy rom-com? A win her back trope? Second chances? In the real world, there's not that much drama and romance. There's only my career. Feeling unsatisfied, I kicked him hard. Marcus, caught off guard, gasped. I pointed a finger at his nose and cursed, "Stop bothering me. If you mess with my divorce settlement because of a photo, I'll kill you." I had a few drinks. After the dinner party, I stood in the cold wind, waiting for my driver. Marcus's car pulled up in front of me. The car window slowly rolled down, revealing Marcus's face. His voice was low. "Get in." I replied coldly, "I have a driver." Marcus chuckled, looking confident. "Your driver won't be able to make it." Before I could figure out what he meant, my cell phone rang. My driver said he got rear-ended in a minor accident and I'd have to wait a bit longer. I looked at Marcus, gritting my teeth. "Was that you?" Marcus gave a noncommittal nod. "Don't worry, I'll compensate you for all your losses. I just wanted to drive you home. After all, it's so cold, and you hate the cold the most." The night wind was quite chilly. A gust blew past, and I instinctively pulled my neck in. Marcus's car was parked right at the hotel entrance. A long line of cars had formed behind it, but no one dared to honk. Aft. All, what truly announced his status more than the car itself was his personalized license plate. Marcus lazily tilted his head, his fist propped under his chin, a half-smile playing on his lips as he said, "Get in, or I'll just park here all night. The reporters will definitely be curious why I'm not leaving, and then you might just get photographed." I gritted my teeth. The thought of how those reporters could fabricate wild stories from just a few photos made me felt a shiver run down my spine. Marcus had certainly tricked me. Reluctantly, I opened the car door and got in. Throughout the ride, no matter what Marcus said, I didn't respond to him once. The car stopped steadily in front of my house. I turned my head to Marcus and asked, "At the party before the wedding, did you intentionally arrange for your sister to say those things in the restroom for me to hear?" Marcus readily admitted, "Yes, it was me." "I thought you had a right to know." My expression was calm. "You didn't think I had a right to know, you just wanted to achieve your own goals." Marcus chuckled, neither admitting nor denying it. I didn't want to dwell on it. I pushed the door open and got out, immediately seeing Daniel leaning against the car door, smoking a cigarette. Several cigarette butts were scattered around his feet, suggesting he had been waiting for me for a long time. He looked at me, dropped the cigarette in his hand, and slowly walked towards me. "James wouldn't let me in, so I had to wait for you here. This is my house. It's perfectly normal for James not to let you in." Marcus's car still hadn't driven off, as if he wanted to watch the entire scene between Daniel and me. Daniel looked at the car behind me and scoffed, "On a date with your old flame?" I didn't want to explain to him. After muttering crazy, I turned to leave. Marcus pushed open the driver's side door and got out. Daniel, at 6 feet tall, still seemed a head shorter than Marcus, who was nearly 6 feet 3. Marcus smirked down at Daniel, lazily asking, "Who the hell are you?" Before I met Marcus, I'd never seen anyone so arrogant and brazen, casually disrespecting and humiliating others. "You're nothing more than an ex-husband Olivia is about to discard." Marcus emphasized the words ex-husband. Daniel yelled furiously, "Olivia is my wife. At best, you're just an intruder in our relationship." Marcus curled his lip, sneering, "The unloved one is the outsider." The atmosphere between the two men was tense. Seeing things about to escalate, I ordered Marcus, "Go now." Marcus looked at me for a long time. Seeing that I was genuinely angry, he got into his car and drove away. Daniel watched me for a long time, his hoarse voice laced with coldness and anger. "Marcus is the real reason you're insisting on a divorce, isn't he? You blame everything on me, but how virtuous are you really? I'm not the only one rekindling old flames." I looked him straight in the eye. At least my old flame didn't cause a scene at the wedding, causing me economic, reputational, and various other losses. Daniel took a deep breath, finally stating his purpose. "I apologize to you. Don't divorce me." I remained silent, waiting for him to continue. Daniel choked out, "My mother warned me that if we divorce, she won't let Stella off easy." My face was calm, my voice utterly flat. "You helped Stella open an art exhibition, let her make a scene and humiliate me at our wedding, and then paraded her around while discussing our divorce. Did you never consider the consequences?" I found it absurdly amusing. When you make a choice, you have to face the consequences and pay the price. I walked closer to him and delivered my ultimatum coldly. "If you don't sign the divorce agreement, I will have Daniel be taken over by the Olivia family." Under my threat, Daniel contacted his lawyer and made concessions. Too bad Daniel didn't know that Daniel would one day be taken over by the Olivia family regardless. BF. Or I signed the divorce agreement. Stella came to find me. Part of her face had been scalded by the hot coffee that day, robbing her of her former beauty. Although I disliked Stella, I had to admit she was indeed stunningly beautiful, and it was no wonder she had been haunting Daniel's thoughts for so many years. Stella stood while I watched her indifferently from my office chair. She said, "I'm leaving. One has to live, it's impossible to throw away your life for love." Stella was a sensible person. I admired that about her. I chuckled lightly. "You came just to tell me that?" She shook her head. "I want to exchange some information I have for some money from Mr. Olivia." I raised an eyebrow. "How much?" 10 million. I found it laughable. Just as I was about to snap back at her, she spoke. "I promise this information is worth more than 10 million to you." I was curious about the reason for her certainty. I pulled out a check, wrote a sum on it, signed my name, and pushed it across the table toward her. "You speak first. If I deem the information valuable, then I'll give you the money." "Ms. Olivia," she began, "do you know who sent me stateside? And who instructed me to cause a scene at the wedding?" She sneered, enunciating each word slowly, as if to ensure I heard clearly. "Your mother, Eleanor." My mind exploded. I didn't know how to react. She placed a USB drive on the table. "I know you might not believe me, but here's the call recording between your mother and me." I looked at the USB drive, trying to compose myself, then met her gaze. 10 million is yours." Stella took the check and left. I inserted the USB drive into the computer, my fingers trembling slightly as I clicked on the recording file. The moment Eleanor's voice came through, I wished I were deaf. After signing the divorce papers, the news of Daniel and my divorce went viral. Marcus sent me a text congratulating me on the divorce, along with an address, saying he had something important to tell me. Thinking some things needed to be clarified, I arrived promptly for our meeting. The private lounge was quiet, save for the sound of flowing water. Marcus remained silent for a long time before finally speaking. "The reason I broke up with you back then was because your mother approached me. She said you almost broke ties with your father to help the Marcus family, and she didn't want to damage the harmony between you and your father, so she hoped I wouldn't entangle you further." A suffocating feeling settled in my chest, and my eyes turned bloodshot. "I didn't want to burden you, so I broke up with you as your aunt suggested. Every day after we broke up, I thought of you. I envisioned making a name for myself, becoming someone worthy of you, and returning to your side." A sudden surge of emotion welled up in my chest, a knot of pain tightening in my stomach. I looked at Marcus, tears slowly streaming down my face. Stella told me it was my mother who brought her back, and it was my mother who told her to cause a scene at the wedding. With that, I collapsed to the ground, losing consciousness completely. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital. Seeing I was awake, Marcus rushed over to help me up. "The doctor said you fainted because you were too emotional." I interrupted him. "I'm not feeling well. Could you please call the doctor for me?" Marcus hurried to get the doctor. The moment the door closed, I pulled out the 4-drip and left the hospital, heading straight for the family estate. Upon entering the family estate, I went directly to Eleanor's bedroom. I pushed open the door and saw Eleanor flipping through a magazine. Eleanor was impeccably preserved, showing no trace of aging. Her every movement exuded elegance. Hearing my entrance, she looked up, her eyes filled with tenderness. I gritted my teeth and confronted her. "Why did you do it?" Eleanor's expression instantly darkened, the tenderness in her eyes vanishing in a flash. "So, you know." I repeated, "Why did you do it?" Eleanor's gaze, venomous, met mine. "Your father forcibly separated me and my lover, binding me with his influence. How could I let his daughter have her wish of a lifetime with her beloved? Arthur protects you like the apple of his eye. You're the most precious thing to him in this world, besides the Olivia. After I married in, he was so afraid I'd mistreat you that he installed surveillance cameras everywhere in the mansion. Whatever you desire, he'd hand to you on a silver platter. Only when you suffer will he be devastated. You value appearances just as much as he does. I want to see everyone in the Olivia family utterly humiliated. You didn't interfere with Daniel and me. Was it because you knew Daniel didn't love me at all?" Eleanor sneered. "Even your encounter with Daniel was orchestrated by me. I told him your preferences, how to read your mind. After all, you're just like your father, pursuing self-interest. You wouldn't care who you married, as long as it brought you benefits. You'd willingly sleep in the same bed and pretend to be deeply in love. You're heartless at your core, devoid of any genuine emotion. You and Arthur are born actors. No matter who you marry, you can play the part well. I just wanted to see if you could act as well as your father, even when your partner's heart belonged to another woman. I stared at her in disbelief, an unbearable pain gripping my heart. My voice cracked with a sob. But you were always so good to me, ever since I was a child. She let out a cold laugh, as if mocking my naivete. One must keep up appearances. I had never heard such cruel words. Cold sweat trickled down my spine, and I felt unsteady, almost collapsing to the floor. I was close to hysterical. I had always been taught to rein in my emotions, to never let anyone easily know my inner thoughts. No one had ever taught me how to vent. I picked up the ashtray from the table and hurled it against the wall. It shattered on impact. I roared, when insisted on breaking up with me back then. I even suspected my own father, but never you. I trusted you so much, I thought of you as my own mother, and you schemed against me like this? Eleanor looked at me, her eyes eerily calm. I hate your father, so how could I ever love you? My heart felt as if an invisible hand had clamped down on it, aching terribly. So this is what it feels like to be hurt by your closest kin. I turned my head and saw a mirror not far away, realizing I was crying. My heart felt like it had a huge hole carved out of it, a void that could never be filled again in this lifetime. This is what it means for a heart to die, I thought. I don't know how I left the family estate. When I came to, I was speeding down the highway. I drove to the coast and stopped. Only after getting out of the car did I notice Marcus's car parked nearby. He had been following me the whole time, afraid something might happen to me. I looked at him and smiled, a sorrowful smile, my voice flat. I lost my biological mother at 10, and my second mother at 28. After saying that, I couldn't help but laugh, a laugh close to madness. As I laughed, I started to cry, squatting down and hugging my knees, seeking some comfort. I had never been so undone, not even when Marcus decisively broke up with me and returned stateside. Family was always more important to me than love, so the pain inflicted by family was enough to deliver a fatal blow. Marcus squatted down and hugged me, his palm gently stroking my back. It will all pass, honey, it will all pass. His voice was tender and sympathetic. Trust me. I abruptly pushed him away, stumbling as I stood. Who the hell are you? Do you think a few words can make me abandon everything? With that, I drove away. I dragged my exhausted body home and asked the housekeeper to draw my bathwater. Submerged in the hot water, I had no time to wallow in sorrow. There was an important meeting tomorrow that I couldn't miss. It was in the middle of the meeting that I received the news that Eleanor had tried to take her own life and was undergoing emergency treatment. I rushed to the hospital. The first words the doctor said to me were that they had done everything they could. Eleanor was dead. I swayed, almost collapsing to the floor, but Sarah quickly steadied me. My father was flying back from abroad. For now, I was the only one holding things together here. I instructed Sarah to suppress the news, ensuring not a single detail of Eleanor's suicide leaked out. I looked at Eleanor's remains, unable to describe the feeling. I leaned down and softly called, Mom. We publicly announced that Eleanor had passed away from a sudden heart attack, keeping the truth of her suicide from the outside world. I found her suicide note, filled with accusations against her parents for forcibly separating her and her lover for power and status. It also stated that my father, to ensure she would be a good Mrs. Arthur, had sent her lover abroad. Her lover had passed away from cancer 3 months prior. She was devastated, but she endured until now, solely to ruin my wedding and destroy the Olivia family's reputation. She wrote that those things ultimately didn't matter to me. Her betrayal was what truly left me heartbroken. Her objective was achieved, she was going to be with her lover. At the end of the suicide note, she wrote, Olivia, I'm sorry. Calmly, I burned the suicide note. Nothing that could be used against us could remain. She died of a heart attack, not suicide. I watched the flames consume the paper, tears blurring my vision. A week after the funeral, Marcus found me. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he stated his purpose, some regrets, if you wish, can be mended. My heart was calm, incapable of even the slightest ripple. Today, I was determined to find closure. I thought Marcus won't give up until he hits rock bottom. I gazed at him calmly. Do you think everything between us can go back just because you want it to? Second chances won't magically restore what was broken, and reconciliation doesn't mean our relationship can return to how it was. We're no longer our 22-year-old selves. We've long passed the age where love alone was enough to face anything. Now, we weigh the pros and cons more than ever before. We won't abandon everything for so-called love. My 22-year-old self couldn't abandon everything for you, much less my current self. As I spoke these words, I was calmer than I'd imagined, and my mind felt clearer. This is the real world, not some romance novel, let alone a fairy tale. There are no princes and princesses overcoming countless hardships to reunite and live happily ever after. In real life, princes and princesses will fiercely compete over a business deal, because they are responsible not just for themselves, but for their employees too. I know you wanted to prove yourself, to stand by my side only when you were equally matched with the Olivia family. But you shouldn't have abandoned me. Regardless of whether Eleanor approached you, you should have unwaveringly chosen me. You couldn't do it 5 years ago, and now, at the top, you're even less capable of it. Marcus listened to me, sentence after sentence, his eyes turned red. He asked with a tremor in his voice, "Is there really no possibility for us anymore?" I didn't directly answer his question. I had already given him the answer long ago, he just refused to accept it. I smiled faintly. "I have work tomorrow. You should go home and rest." I remember the winter in Switzerland was exceptionally cold that year. I had persuaded Dad to help the Marcus family overcome their difficulties. When I returned to Switzerland, eager to share the good news with Marcus, I found a note. It read, "Let's break up. Wishing you peace and good health." That note had always been hidden at the bottom of my safe. What peace could I find? The boy who defined my youth, Th. E. boy I loved so much I was willing to endure hardships with, left me only a note when he broke up with me. He didn't even have the courage to break up with me face to face. My 22-year-old self couldn't find peace, much less forgive. After we broke up, I never traveled abroad again, not just because of my busy career, but because during our relationship, Marcus and I had traveled extensively to many countries, leaving behind too many memories. I'm not a heartless person devoid of feelings. I was afraid of being stirred by memories, afraid I would come to hate Marcus. I had loved him, and I didn't want to hate him. Hating someone often takes more energy than loving them. In the adult world, we should part amicably and with dignity. Marcus would have a good future, but I wouldn't be a part of it. Nor would he be a part of mine. I took the note from the safe, pressed the lighter, and set the note aflame. The note slowly turned to ashes from its edges. I bid farewell to my youth completely. I have work tomorrow. I will meet new people, weigh the pros and cons, and find someone most suitable to spend the rest of my life with. Love isn't forever, suitability is. This is my best ending. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.